Have you ever stayed in a place that quietly broke you? Not because it was dramatic or violent or loud, but because every day it asked you to shrink just a little more. Most people don't realize this, but the scariest part of walking away isn't what you're leaving behind. It's the voice in your head that says, "What if I'm not strong enough?" But what if I told you that your voice, your real voice, is waiting on the other side of that decision? And what if I told you your English fluency isn't stuck because of grammar or words, but because your mind is still trying to survive in environments that silence you? This is not just a story about learning English. This is a story about self-respect, emotional freedom, and the quiet revolution that begins the moment you choose yourself. And the best part? While you listen, your English will grow naturally, not through boring rules, but through emotional truth, spoken clearly, slowly, powerfully. So if you're ready to walk away from the version of you that kept waiting and step into the one who speaks, chooses, and leads, then stay with me. Because what happens in the next few minutes might just change your language and your life. She stood at the doorway, her hand resting on the cold handle, but her heart burning with fear. Everything inside her screamed to stay, to keep the peace, to keep people happy. But deep down, something louder whispered, "You're disappearing." It wasn't just about leaving a job, a home, or even a relationship. It was about finally noticing how staying was slowly killing her spirit. She used to say things like, "It's okay, I can handle it," while crying silently into her pillow at night. But the truth was, she wasn't handling it. She was shrinking, not just in English, where she stayed silent in conversations, but in life, where she kept saying yes when she wanted to scream no. The moment of truth came quietly. No drama, just a breath, a realization. She whispered the sentence she had never dared to say before, "I choose myself," and that changed everything. Not the situation, not instantly, but the identity. For the first time, her choice wasn't about survival. It was about self-respect. And that sentence? It wasn't just emotional. It was English practice. Say it out loud now. "I choose myself." But the moment she took that first step, her body betrayed her. Her hands trembled. Her breath felt thin. "What if I'm making a mistake?" she thought. And that's the thing. Most people don't fear the door. They fear what walking through it means. That they can't go back. That they'll lose everything. But the bigger fear, staying and losing yourself. What kept her stuck wasn't the situation. It was the guilt. The invisible belief that leaving would make her a bad person. That she would disappoint people. That she would owe an explanation for choosing peace. But here's the hard truth. Staying to protect others' comfort while abandoning your own soul is not kindness. It's self-erasure. Practice this English sentence. "I'm not responsible for everyone's comfort." And then it happened. She walked. No grand goodbye, no fireworks. Just her, choosing silence over permission. And the moment she stepped out, the world didn't collapse. Instead, she heard something she hadn't heard in years, her own voice, clear, calm, certain, like a new language being born. Her first real English sentence that night, "I did it." And that evening, alone in a small room, she turned on her phone and whispered 10 seconds of honest English to herself. No script, no grammar book, just words from her soul. "I left. I was scared, but I did it." It wasn't perfect English, but it was perfectly real. And in that moment, she wasn't practicing English. She was rebuilding herself, one sentence at a time. Because that's the truth most people never hear. The voice you use to speak English is the same voice you use to speak to yourself. If it's full of fear, doubt, and self-erasure, your sentences will always sound small. But when you choose yourself, your English changes too. You stop translating, you start telling the truth. And that was just the beginning. If your goal is to never grow, here's a foolproof plan. Stay exactly where people make you feel small. Surround yourself with those who ignore your progress, belittle your effort, and pretend they don't see your growth. That way you'll always question yourself, in life and in English. Want to lock in that self-doubt permanently? Just keep apologizing for taking up space. Practice this sentence. I grow where I'm respected. If you want your life to stay confusing, messy, and unclear, ask advice from people who secretly don't want you to rise. Go to those who never left their comfort zone. Listen to their fears disguised as wisdom. Let their doubts become your truth. Or you could try something radical. Give yourself advice. Write it down in English. What would you tell yourself right now? If wasting years is on your to-do list, keep staying in places that feel familiar, not right. Repeat the same habits, same excuses, same loops. Tell yourself, I'm used to this, even if it's draining you. That's the recipe for regret. Want a new habit? Describe one you must leave in English. For example, I stay silent in meetings because I'm afraid of my English. And write yours. And if you want to look back in 10 years wondering where your time went, just wait. Wait for someone else to say, it's time to go. Wait for a sign. Wait for approval. Wait until the pain becomes unbearable. That's how people lose decades, not from one big mistake, but from 100 silent hesitations. Say this out loud now. I decide my direction. You know what keeps people stuck? Believing that staying is safer, that walking away is failure. But the real failure is staying in rooms where your voice is shrinking, your potential is suffocating, and your English is never spoken. You can't practice confidence in a place that makes you feel invisible. Repeat this English insight. My voice deserves space. Still want to stay stuck? Compare yourself to others every day. Scroll and scroll. Watch fluent speakers and say, I'll never sound like that. Never mind the fact that they've practiced for years. Just keep saying, it's too late for me. Or, you can break the pattern. Choose one English sentence that reflects who you want to become. And speak it now. Want to make sure your English never improves? Practice only in your mind. Don't move your mouth. Don't make mistakes. Don't try. Just think about English. Wish for fluency and stay silent. It works perfectly for keeping you stuck. But if you want to escape that cycle, do this. Say one opinion in English today, even if your voice shakes. That's real learning. And finally, if you want to live a life of quiet regret, keep asking, what if? Keep rehearsing imaginary failures instead of real action. Keep postponing your exit from the life you've outgrown. But if you're done with that, maybe it's time to meet the girl who walked away from everything that hurt her and found her English voice in the process. She used to sit quietly at the back of the room, eyes low, lips sealed, not just in English class, in life. She smiled politely, nodded often, and said very little. Not because she didn't have thoughts, but because somewhere along the way she learned. Speaking made people uncomfortable, so she stayed silent, thinking that was safer. But silence for her became self-abandonment, not kindness. At home, at work, with friends, she always played small, always the listener, always the peacemaker. But inside, her chest felt tight, like she was holding in an entire language, not just English words, but emotions, opinions, dreams. It wasn't that she didn't want to speak, it was that she forgot how to believe she was allowed to. Say this softly. Silence is not who I am. Then one morning everything felt too heavy. The noise of pretending, the weight of being the good girl. She looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the face staring back. Not because she changed, but because she had never let her real self be seen. And that's when it hit her. She had outgrown her environment. Speak this now, even if it's hard. I deserve more. She walked away. Not just from a relationship, not just from a job. She walked away from the guilt, the fake smiles, the constant self-editing. She left without fanfare, without a dramatic exit speech. She simply chose to stop abandoning herself. That day, she whispered a sentence she never had the courage to say before. I matter. Say one line now that you wish you had said. And something changed. Her voice began to return, not magically, but gradually. At the cafe, she ordered in English without hesitation. At work, she offered her opinion in a meeting. At home, she recorded herself reading English stories. Her English didn't become perfect, but it became real, because it was no longer a performance. It was her truth. The more she stepped into her power, the clearer her English became. She stopped trying to sound like someone else. She started sounding like herself. And strangely, that was more fluent than anything she had ever practiced. Fluency wasn't about speed. It was about alignment. Record this today, a 15-second honest introduction. Not perfect, just true. Her story isn't rare, it's just rarely told, because most people only see English as a language. But for her, it was a mirror. The more she owned her voice, the stronger her English became. The moment she stopped shrinking, her sentences grew. The moment she stopped apologizing, her pronunciation sharpened. Confidence didn't come after fluency. It created it. And now, she still makes mistakes, but she speaks. She still feels fear, but she doesn't let it mute her. She still has hard days, but she doesn't disappear anymore. Because this girl, the one who walked away, didn't just change her language. She changed her life, and what happened next rewired everything from the inside out. Let's talk about something your brain doesn't always want you to know. It would rather keep you in pain than face the unknown. That's not weakness, it's survival. Psychologists call this the attachment trap. Your mind links safety to what's familiar, even if it's slowly destroying you. That's why walking away feels terrifying. Say this with honesty. Letting go is safe. To d'ajouter, when you stay in a place that drains you, your brain tells you it's the right thing. Don't hurt them. Don't make things worse. But here's the psychological illusion. You believe staying keeps others safe, but it's you who is quietly breaking. People with empathy often confuse guilt with responsibility. Practice writing this truth in English. I am not the reason others avoid their own discomfort. Low self-worth complicates everything. If you've spent your life believing your voice is too much, too soft, or not good enough, you'll tolerate spaces that keep confirming that belief. You'll call it being polite, but it's really self-neglect. Psychologically, we attract what mirrors our self-image, and if you think you don't matter, you'll stay where you're treated that way. Say this now. I see my value. Here's where the shift begins. The moment you walk away, you activate a different part of your brain, the part responsible for identity. It's called prefrontal activation. It's what helps you plan, decide, and lead. When you remove yourself from a space that misrepresents you, your brain gets a signal. I'm in control now. Speak this aloud. I lead my life. That's why walking away isn't just emotional. It's neurological. It retrains your system. It says, I no longer accept the familiar lie. Your breathing changes. Your posture changes. Your voice changes. Yes, even your English changes. Why? Because your language patterns reflect your emotional state. Clear identity. Clearer communication. Let's take English fluency, for example. If your brain is in freeze mode from emotional stress, your speech slows down, you forget words, you translate in your head. But when you walk away from toxic pressure, your cognitive load lightens and your fluency improves. Not from studying harder, but from living aligned. Emotional clarity, language clarity. Real healing begins when you separate past conditioning from present truth. That means asking yourself, am I staying because I believe I'm unworthy of more, or because I truly belong here? The first is fear. The second is alignment. In English, say one sentence that names your truth today. Example, I've outgrown this space, and that's okay. So no, walking away is not failure. It's not abandonment. It's not giving up. Psychologically, it's the most powerful way to reclaim your authority. Because you're not ending everything, you're ending the wrong chapter, so the right one can begin. And what that next chapter holds might just rewire your destiny. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts before your mind accepts the truth? A tightness in the chest, a strange heaviness before a meeting, that invisible tension before answering a message. Your body isn't being dramatic, it's being honest. Because when something no longer fits your life, Your soul speaks first, through your nervous system. Try this. Describe that feeling in English right now. Be specific. Sometimes people say, "You've changed," but they're wrong. You didn't change. You remembered who you were before you became what they needed. Choosing yourself will disappoint people, but do it anyway, because the version of you who stays silent, stuck, and small, that's not your future. Speak one uncomfortable truth in English today, even if it scares you. Every time you close one door, you reclaim energy. Energy that was being drained by pretending, pleasing, managing others' emotions. And suddenly, that energy becomes available for learning, for speaking, for creating. That's why when people walk away from toxic situations, their English often improves. Their brain is no longer at war. Say this aloud. I welcome my next chapter. Let's be clear. You're not running away. You're not abandoning people. You're walking toward the version of yourself you've postponed for years. The confident speaker, the calm thinker, the person who wakes up and actually likes their life. When you walk away from what's breaking you, you walk into a space where you can finally breathe. That is not selfish. That is self-respect. In those first few days of walking away, it feels strange, empty, quiet, almost too quiet. That's because the noise is gone, the drama, the explaining, the overthinking. What's left is just you. And for the first time in a long time, you start to feel, not just react. Whisper this in English: I'm allowed to feel peace. Now, your identity begins to shift. Not because of a book, or a teacher, or a miracle, but because you finally stopped fighting yourself. You stopped forcing yourself to fit in spaces that dishonor your voice. You stopped calling dysfunction normal. And that makes space for something new. Journal this tonight. Who am I becoming? And here's the magic most people miss. Your future isn't waiting somewhere far away. It's unfolding every time you speak your truth, every time you say no to something fake, every time you say yes to something real. Even one sentence in English can become a declaration of self. Try this. Write 2 English sentences about the person you're becoming. Do it now, because when you walk away, it's not an escape, it's a rebirth. You leave behind an identity that was built on fear and step into one designed by courage. And the more you live from that place, the more everything changes. Your thoughts, your habits, your English, your life. But what exactly changes inside your brain when you walk away? Your brain is a survival machine. And when you're in the wrong environment, an emotionally unsafe one, it activates cortisol, the stress hormone. That constant stress blocks memory, slows speech, and disrupts learning. Ever notice how your English disappears when you're nervous? That's not a language problem. It's a nervous system response. Try this. Take one slow breath and speak one calm sentence aloud. Now, picture this. You walk away from what's toxic. Slowly, your brain starts to heal. Dopamine, the reward chemical, returns. You feel motivation again, not fake motivation, but real drive. That's why walking away doesn't just give you peace. It gives you your energy back. Celebrate today by doing one small English win. Maybe finish a sentence. Maybe smile while saying it. Here's the secret most people never learn. When you're constantly managing other people's emotions, tiptoeing, apologizing, avoiding conflict, your cognitive space is full. And when your brain is full, there's no room for learning. But the moment you let go of all that emotional clutter, your focus sharpens. Your memory improves and your English starts flowing. Action step. Listen to 1 minute of English while completely relaxed. Every time you choose to walk away from a place that doesn't honor you, you send a message to your brain. I trust myself. That activates new neural pathways, ones associated with clarity, autonomy, and resilience. You're not just making a life decision, you're reprogramming your brain. Say this now with presence. I trust my decisions. Let's go deeper. Language fluency isn't just about vocabulary. It's about mental availability. When your nervous system is in constant alert mode, your brain prioritizes survival. not expression. But in calm, safe environments, your prefrontal cortex lights up, the part responsible for speech, planning, and clear thought. Translation? When you feel safe, your English improves automatically. Remember that job interview where your English froze? Or that video call where your brain went blank? That wasn't failure. That was survival mode. Your brain wasn't resisting English. It was protecting you. But when you walk away from chronic stress, you enter a new state, learning mode. From that space, fluency becomes not a struggle, but a flow. Now imagine combining neuroscience with intentional practice. What happens? You start anchoring English into your new identity, not the one that stayed silent, the one that chose change. Your sentences gain weight, your words carry purpose, your mouth moves with trust. That's not just improvement, that's rewiring. That's the fluency of a transformed brain. So yes, walking away rewires you. It doesn't just free your time, it restores your chemistry. Your attention sharpens, your emotions stabilize, and your language becomes a tool of truth, not survival. Your voice deepens, your message strengthens. But what happens on the outside when your inner voice changes? At first, no one noticed. She still looked the same clothes, same smile, same routine. But something in her tone was different. Her voice wasn't rushed, it wasn't apologizing. It had presence, like it knew where it stood. That's what happens when you walk away from what diminishes you. Your voice stops whispering and starts standing. Try it now. Speak a simple sentence slowly, with full presence. She used to say, "I'm not sure, maybe," but now, "I think this is the better way." Still soft, but firm. Still kind, but clear. That's the ripple of confidence. It shows up in your English first, not in big speeches, but in everyday sentences. Say this, in my opinion. Say it again, but this time, believe it. Your speech reflects your identity, and once your identity changes, once you start respecting yourself, your language starts reflecting that truth. There's no need to explain everything, no need to overuse sorry or just. That habit of shrinking in English, it disappears. Today, say one clear English opinion. It doesn't need to be deep. It just needs to be yours. People began to respond differently to her, not because she spoke better English, but because she stopped doubting herself every time she opened her mouth. There's something magnetic about someone who knows their worth. She didn't speak louder, she spoke steadier. That's the posture of independence. Try this. Speak a line while grounding your feet and controlling your breath. She used to think, when my English improves, I'll change. But now she saw it the other way. When I change, my English improves. Your mindset shapes your fluency. Because fluency isn't just language, it's confidence in motion. It's self-trust, translated into words. That's why walking away from fear is one of the most powerful English tools you have. New environments started opening up. A study group, a video call, a job interview. Suddenly, English wasn't just a subject. It was the key to the next room. And she stepped into it, not perfectly but proudly. Her first action? Using English in a space she had avoided before. Try that. One new space, one real sentence, even if your heart beats fast. Her friends asked, "What's changed?" She smiled. "I stopped waiting for permission." They thought she was talking about life, but deep down, she also meant English. Because the more she respected her voice in all areas, the more fluently it came out. Say this now. I don't shrink to fit anymore. Your mouth needs to feel that sentence. And that was the moment she realized she wasn't just learning English anymore. She was becoming someone new, a version of herself that didn't ask to be chosen. She chose herself, but the real realization, the final shift, was still waiting for her. And it came in the form of one question. "Why did I stay so long?" she whispered into the darkness of her own mind. She knew the answer. She had confused loyalty with self-betrayal. She thought enduring meant strength, but the longer she stayed, the more she disappeared. That night, sitting alone with her truth, she finally said it, in English, out loud. I stay only where I grow. What changed me? She asked herself. It wasn't a book, it wasn't a video. It was one moment, one step toward the door, one moment of honesty, one act of courage that said, no more. Want to feel it too? Speak for 60 seconds about one moment you outgrew, in English. Don't worry if it's perfect, just speak. That single act shifted everything, her brain, her body, her language. She no longer repeated the same small sentences over and over. Now, her English had depth, because her life had direction. Her voice was no longer a performance. It was a reflection. Say this with meaning. I speak from alignment, not anxiety. Who am I becoming? She asked. The answer was slow, but clear. I'm becoming someone who protects her peace, someone who listens to her inner voice, in life and in English. This wasn't about learning another tense or phrasal verb. It was about becoming someone who no longer waited to be understood, but finally understood herself. Say this aloud. I walk toward my future. Now, every sentence she speaks feels different, not because her vocabulary exploded, but because her energy shifted. She speaks with pauses now, with breath, with boundaries. She knows she's allowed to be. And in that space, her English flows, not like a student, but like someone telling the truth. She created a new ritual, a nightly affirmation, one sentence of confidence, whispered into the quiet. Some nights it's, I am allowed to leave. Other nights, I am not behind, I am becoming. But every night she gives her voice a home. Try it now. Record your own walk-away confidence affirmation, just one sentence. No one tells you this, but walking away is not the end of your story. It's the start of your voice. And the more you use it, in English, in decisions, in love, the more your life begins to align. Not perfectly, but honestly. And that is enough. Because now, when people ask her what changed, she doesn't give them a long explanation. She just smiles, because they can hear it in her voice, in her words, in her presence. And her final sentence, before the next chapter begins, I'm proud I walked away. Let me ask you something simple, but not easy. Where in your life have you stayed too long? And what would happen if you finally walked away? Not out of anger, not out of drama, but with quiet strength, because your peace is worth protecting. Throughout this video, you didn't just hear a story. You practiced English. You practiced presence. You discovered that fluency is not just about language, it's about identity. So now it's your turn. What's one sentence you need to speak in English to begin your next chapter? Write it down. Say it out loud. Share it in the comments if you're ready. Because English isn't just a skill. It's a doorway to your truth, to new opportunities, to a version of you who finally says, I lead my life. If this story touched something inside you, subscribe to the channel, like the video to help others find it. And most importantly, share your story, in English, in honesty, in your own voice. Because this is just the beginning.